This is another little project. I actually did this yesterday, but I modified it. I made a video of it and then I modified it, and then I thought, oh, you know what? This really justifies its own video because it's quite neat. My brother was asking about some garden lights, and just for when he had friends round for a party or something like that, and because his garden's quite rambly, it doesn't really facilitate running lots of cables around it. It really doesn't facilitate digging them in at all. So I thought, what about self-contained lights like this? It's a little green floodlight, and it doesn't look very bright in camera because it's competing with 20-watt, 220-watt LED floodlights, but this is running at about a watt, and it's putting out just pure green light. And I tested it out in the garden tonight, and it's quite amazing. When you point it at bushes and things like that, it just makes them light up bright green. So I thought little lights like this, which are fully waterproof, that just run off 3 very standard nickel metal hydride cells, and could potentially last, well, let's do the maths. Actually, I could tell you already, it's 10 hours they could theoretically last on the 0.2 amp hour. And I should have said the 2 amp hour, the 2100 milliamp hour as it is in the case of these ones. So yeah, so let's see how this is made. I've pre-assembled an LED. This is just a 1-watt LED mounted onto a star circuit board. You could have got it pre-mounted, but I decided, I've been playing about with a pack of the little star circuit boards and bare 1-watt LEDs, and just sticking them on and soldering them up and just making them as I want. And I've put on 2 tails, one red, one black, for polarity. And I'm going to use this torch here, this flashlight, as the battery pack. And these flashlights come with the little 2-pin tungsten lamp. And you get LED versions of these, but ironically the tungsten one's actually better suited to this task. And instead of the lamp being pushed in there, I've got this little 2-pin Molex connector, and at the moment it's got a polarizing tag there, and that would stop it being pushed in. So I'm just going to cut that off, and now it won't stop it being pushed in. And now this acts as a little 2-pin plug, and will push in place of where that lamp was, and you can actually feel it going into the contacts, which is good. Now, I have to find out with a meter which of these contacts is connected to the case, because one of them is connected to the positive inside and the other is connected to the case through this click on click off switch. So let's get a random meter. We'll stick that to continuity, and I'll put one of the leads onto the case here. Not sure of the position of the switch. So that is the negative connection there. So I'm going to mark the one opposite it with the red to show it's the positive. Good blob. There we go. Now I'm going to be filling this up with resin, the head completely with resin, just to seal it up completely. And one of the slight weaknesses of these torches when they're being used as battery packs and filled with resin is that there are lots of little holes that the resin can go down, and I learned this the hard way. I was making some lights for the Royal Emperor Military Tattoo. It was little beacon lights that were basically cable tied onto the railings around the arena, and they gave a very small bright dot of light that just allowed the band to march centrally down the arena and keep, you know, their location when they were marching in the dark, to actually do the sort of big reveal type thing like that. And the first time I tried it, and unfortunately I had the batteries inside as well, I filled it up with resin. I thought, oh, this is taking a lot of resin. I added a wee bit more and a wee bit more, and it just gradually went down. Then I just thought, oh, and the batteries were just resined solid. I had to just throw the whole thing away because I could not get the batteries out because they were basically resined in, because all the resin had poured down the inside. So this is a white tack, which is a light blue tack, but it's white, which is why they call it white tack. So I'm going to use little bits of this just to block all these holes that the resin could actually go down, without actually getting too much over the threads. Maybe try that again. And all this really does, it is just purely just to stop the resin actually flooding down into the battery compartment. But as an extra precaution, when I put the resin in, I will not be, I will not have the batteries in. So I'm just going to build a little, basically a little dam round there that will still let me screw the thing on, but will, as I say, block those holes. And I'm just pushing it down into it just so that it fills it up. It's a bit messy, it's not ideal. You could use Play-Doh as well. Play-Doh might have been better, plasticine. I suppose it's got lots of different names depending where in the world you are. And a wee tiny bit more. I'm just going to make sure afterwards that I've left the actual socket clear, because I want to be able to poke my connector in and actually even see where I'm poking it, which would be quite good. That looks alright. Okay, so that's that out of the way. Now here's the connector, and I'm going to mark one side as the positive. And I'm going to put it into these this helping hand here. Oh, here's another thing before I do that. The torch has this pressed in plastic lens in the end and a reflector. The best way to remove that is to take a screwdriver, and I put it on a sort of carpeted surface or something like that, or hold it in your hand and just smack the back like that, and it pushes it out. And it's quite handy that the ridge that sits in the reflector and lens is just the right size to actually park a star LED against. This is a Poundland torch. I don't know if I've mentioned that before. Which means it cost £1. It's very good. It makes an ideal waterproof battery pack. I've used them before in projects. So I'm going to solder the two resistors on. Now the resistor values I've chosen using quite a complex bit of maths. I'll go over the maths very, very quickly here. So I got a green LED and I tried it at various currents, and I found that as I turned the voltage up, it started to glow at 2 volts. 100 milliamps had a forward voltage of 2.87 volts, 200 milliamps 3.06 volts, 300 milliamps 3.24 volts, and the maximum current for the 1 watt LED, which is 350 milliamps, had a forward voltage of about 3.35 volts. So based on that, with the 3 batteries, I'm using 3 AA cells, which will start off at 1.5 volts and drop down to 1.2 volts. But to avoid driving the LED, I'm going to base this on the full charge voltage, which also means I could use alkalines in because they'll start at 4.5 volts as well. So to calculate the resistor I need for that, I'm going to be using this formula. The battery is 4.5 volts at the maximum charge. The LED current is 350 milliamp, and the voltage at that point will be 3.35. So that means the voltage to drop across the resistor for 350 milliamps at 4.5 volts will be 1.15 volts, if you follow me. The resistance then, 1.15 volts to drop, divided by the current, equals 3.3 ohms. I've got 2 resistors in series, partly because of power dissipation, as you'll see later. And the 2 resistors are going to be equal 3.3 ohms, therefore each resistor will be roughly 1.65 ohms. That's not a standard value. I could either choose from what I've got, 1.5 or 1.8. 1.5 would have just resulted in a bit too much current, so I chose 1.8. Now that's going to give 1.8, 1.8 is 3.6 volts total, 3.6 ohms should I say. Now the power dissipation from the resistors is the voltage that's being dropped, 1.15 volts, times the current that's going through it, which came out at 0.4 watts, divided by the 2 resistors, so each resistor is going to be dropping 200 milliwatts each at the peak when it's first switched on with fresh batteries, and they're rated 250 milliwatts. So 200 milliwatts should be fine, and it will drop off after that. So initially the current, I'm anticipating the current will start off round about 350 milliamps, but as the voltage settles down to 3.6, I'm anticipating it's going to drop to about 150 to 200 milliamps, and that's fine. That's very bright. I've already seen what it looks like at that, and it looks very good. So I'm going to start by soldering these resistors onto that connector. And then I'll be putting some heat shrink sleeving across them just because it kind of keeps everything well insulated and it looks neat. So here's the solder. I was experimenting with a different solder recently, with silver in it, a high melting point solder. And for some reason, the day after that, the solder iron tip just completely screwed up the previous one I used, my favourite chisel one. So I've switched to using the double-sided flat tip one. I'm not sure what the exact name of that is. And I have to say, I've got used to it, it's okay. So that's one resistor soldered on. And the other. And now I'm going to put some heat shrink sleeving over those just to provide insulation and stop things getting shorted out. So there's 2 chunks of the heat shrink sleeving, and for that, you know, that's another advantage of this Chinese solder station. It's got this heat gun, and it's great for the heat shrink sleeving. Maybe I've cut that heat shrink sleeving just a tad too long. Nah, it should be fine. Yeah, I like this heat gun, it's very good. I'm using it at 200 degrees centigrade, and that's perfect for just melting these down. That's actually quite high, I must have turned it up recently. So now I'm going to, on the other end of the resistors, I'm going to solder these 2 leads, noting the positive is at this side. And before I do that, I'm going to tin them, and I'm going to put some heat shrink over them, just ready to slide down once I've soldered them. One advantage of the chisel tip type arrangement here, well, it's not the chisel tip, it's the double-sided tip, is that it is double-sided. It means that when you've used one side, if it starts, you start losing the plating off the iron bit and it starts pitting, then at least you've probably effectively got double the use if you start using the other side. I'm not 100% sure. I've never used one of these before, this particular style of bit. So I'm just going to flow this. I've put the heat shrink solder sleeving over. Heat shrink solder, it's not a thing. So I've soldered that one. Oop. And I'll solder this one too. Get them lined up. Okay. And I've left little peaks in the solder there because it was pre-tinned them and there's no fresh flux. So I'm just going to crop those down a bit before I put the heat shrink sleeving down. And that's the heat shrink sleeving down, and I shall just heat that and shrink it. Such a quiet little heat tool this. It seems very good actually. I like it. It's very useful. Also used for removing labels by heating them up. Okay, so this is the LED assembly, and we could test this right now by sticking the cells in. So let's do that in fact. One, two, 3 cells. End cap in. And where's the positive mark, which I've completely obliterated with blue tack, white tack. Oh no, where is it? There it is. So if I plug this in this way, oh fuck. Oh, PEGI 18. Why is that not lighting? What have I done wrong here? Have I got a duff battery pack? That would be really annoying. Oh! That is just so annoying. Why is that not working? Ah. Have I screwed up? Have I put a battery in the wrong way around, or is it just a shit battery? You know, maybe I should have checked that the torch lit in the first place. This is annoying. I don't immediately see why that shouldn't be working. The things that just go wrong. Yeah, that's just not going to work, is it? Damn. Oh, right, okay, one moment. Slight jump cut as I solve a minor soldering issue. Where I'd actually soldered the LED onto the star panel, the solder just sat in the connector. It hadn't gone underneath when I'd tried flowing on the opposite side from the one I'd tacked it on, so I had to reflow that with a little bit of extra solder. And looking at it, it was pretty obvious I just hadn't been paying too much attention at the time. Such laziness. But it now works, so we're ready to start potting this in with resin, which is just where it can really go wrong. So I'm going to take the cells out, so I don't inadvertently glue them in, because they're quite pricey nickel metal hydride cells. And I'm going to place this in like this, and the connector will stick out the bottom, and I shall plug it in here. So that's it connected, and I'm just going to put that on a couple of threads. Now you can see this is sticking well proud, and I'm just going to basically fold these wires down and shove them in, so that as I press the LED in, the wires will just squish into that, but I'll probably guide them in with a screwdriver as well. And just squishing them will do the rest. So now it's sitting nice and flush, but we have to put the resin in. So this is where I'm going to mix the resin, but you're not going to have to watch all the resin dry. Now, I'm just going to grab some. It's quite handy to use a roll of solder just as a stand when you're doing this, because you can just sit the flashlight into it and it keeps it upright while the resin's curing. So I'm going to put 2 portions of resin in, probably. I could just try it all in one, but that's just tempting fate. And the first one will just be to fill in the base in there, and then I'm going to twist this to actually work some of that resin down into the threads, and that will also seal that up and make it completely watertight. There is already a O-ring there, but I don't want MD unscrewing this, and that would really knacker it. So let's get the resin. Dollar store resin, which is just as good as any, the quick setting stuff. I've got resin all over my fingers already, and it's very sticky. So I'm going to squirt a good portion into this dollar store shot glass. Really, this is the really trashy electronic channel. I'm actually aiming to be the trashiest electronic channel on YouTube. And then I'm going to use this wooden dollar store plant stake to mix the resin in the dollar store shot glass. And we'll make sure that's all well mixed together. The temptation is just to go way over the top and actually try and do the whole thing, but that's just tempting fate. It's better done in small batches. Particularly because the heat can rise quite high with the resin as it cures. Not that that's really a major issue here, but particularly in an aluminium, basically an aluminium heatsink in there, if it's going into the aluminium tube. So that's the resin mixed, and I've got a few minutes to work with that. It's the fast curing resin, so I'm going to start spooning it. That sounds like some sort of sexual reference. Spooning, I don't think we should look that up on the internet just in case it is a sexual reference. And now I'm just going to drizzle this in. Then again, every single word is a sexual reference in some way. You can always find some sort of urban dictionary reference to it. So let's get a good quantity of this resin in here. The way it's going at the moment, it's filling it up so much I think it may actually be all the resin I need, and it may end up squishing out the top. But I'll maybe just clean it up afterwards with a wee spot more round the edge just to completely seal over all the electrical connections. Oh yes, this is actually more resin I thought I'd made. This is on the verge of making a huge mess, which is kind of my speciality as well. Yeah, I'm thinking I shouldn't really put this in, then I'm thinking, well, hell yeah. Right, okay. I think that'll do at the moment. Now I'm going to twist this to unscrew it a wee bit, and then I'm going to screw it in again. And just keep doing that a few times, just to actually get the resin down into the threads. That should be it. And now, that has settled down a bit, but am I going to be able to... Yeah, I could squeeze a wee bit more in, I think. This is going to end up all over my fingers. It always does anyway. It comes off, so that's the main thing. Right, this is definitely going to squish up round the LED now when I push this in. It didn't actually squish up. I'm almost disappointed. I want to put more in now. Oh dear, it's really coating the bottom of the LED though. I have to keep an eye on the time of this resin curing. Right. You may hear there's a bit of a storm blowing outside. This is an island in the middle of the Irish Sea. Oh yeah, look at the resin just bulging up. Oh yeah, that's making a mess. Actually, it's all flowing round the connections nicely. Okay, this is where I give you a brief respite from watching resin cure, because it takes a while. It takes a few minutes anyway. I'll try and put a wee tiny spot in round there, and I'll just pause momentarily until this is cured, and if you're very lucky when you come back, my finger may actually be stuck in the resin. It is actually covered in resin. Oh, it's trying to escape. The wire is actually trying to push the thing up. I don't want to get resin over the end of the LED. If you notice my fingers are slightly discoloured, by the way, it's because I was filling my continuous ink system today from my inkjet printer. And it was, well, you know, it doesn't matter what you do when you're refilling inkjet printers, the ink always ends up in your hands. It doesn't matter how careful you are. Right, this is looking fairly good, so I shall pause at the moment and then come back afterwards. And that's the resin pretty much cured now, so I can stick the batteries in. The NiMh Metal Hydride cells to form a battery of cells. And yes, it does light. Well, that's a bit of a relief after what happened there earlier. So yes, that's me got 2 of these now. So that's I'm going to try them in my brother's garden at the weekend and see how they look. As little green LED garden lights. Looks good. Looks pretty good, although it's quite blustery out here now. The wind's catching this and it's certainly blowing it about, but it lights the foliage in a lovely colour. The iPad's kind of washing it out a bit. It looks a much more vivid green. It's quite attractive. Yeah, that's really, really nice, and it lights the whole tree. It's very good.